Comrades agus Accordia, I would like to welcome your engagement with this year's annual Volunteer Ronán MacLochlainn Commemoration by the 32 County Sovereignty Movement. In these exceptional times, we have had to resort to more innovative ways to ensure that Ronán's sacrifice is duly honoured and remembered. To that end, we have employed this video format, not just to relay the proceedings of the commemoration, but also to allow Ronán's family and friends to have some sense of presence and participation. I would like to thank all those taking part in the commemoration and all those whose technical abilities allow this event to take place. We are in your debt. Before our proceedings begin, I invite all Republicans and activists to comment on or otherwise engage to show solidarity with Ronán's family, which, as always, is an exceedingly difficult time for them. We now go over to Martin Canary of the Dublin 32 County Sovereignty Movement for the laying of the reed. We now go over to Jason Murphy for the last post. Now we go to Martin Rafferty of the Belfast 32 County Sovereignty Movement for the main oration.
Comrades agus Accordia, in these exceptional and challenging times, we as Irish Republicans will endeavour in whatever ways we can to ensure that due honour is given to our patriot dead. We applaud all frontline staff who have selflessly and courageously tackled this sinister menace with great fortitude and resilience. The true honouring of these will determine the political narrative on the far side of this crisis. It is a narrative that Irish Republicans must be fully prepared for. We commend all Republicans for their community activism and leadership taken at this time. As we stated in our Easter message, the most poignant resistance we can muster against COVID-19 is common sense mixed with community solidarity. It is a maximum that will serve us well in the political times to come. Volunteer Ronán MacLochlainn gave his life in Ireland that was equally experiencing national political change. A shameless repetition of history was being plotted in shadowy backrooms with the participants communicating under codenames. In a sinister so-called negotiations process, comprising of senior Republicans and British security officials and spanning considerable years, the sovereign legitimacy upon which the Republican struggle was predicated was being treacherously undermined. Far from being a negotiated process to determine a political outcome, what was exposed demonstrated beyond question that the political and military leadership of the Republican movement at that time was wholly compromised. As events came to light, concerned Republicans immediately moved to protect the position of Irish sovereignty. Within Sinn Féin, a committee formed to perform such a task had its members illegally suspended from the party. The issue of Irish sovereignty was now unbelievably a taboo subject. Within the military ranks of the Irish Republican Army, equal concerned volunteers declared this political and military decision wholly incompatible with the Constitution of Óglaigh na hÉireann. The legal and principled stand they took was one for which young volunteer Ronán MacLochlainn gave his allegiance to. As the structure of the sellout was becoming apparent and a plan to pervert democracy to ratify it was emerging, The 32 county sovereignty movement took a leadership role and travelled to the United Nations to formally lodge a submission stating the legitimacy of Irish national sovereignty in international law. The only similar claim existing in law at that time was Articles 2 and 3 of Bernrac na Éireann, but incredibly these articles were to be rescinded with no quid pro quo by the British claim of sovereignty over the 6 counties. Their removal was not even conditional on the success of the so-called agreement reached. The importance of that submission is that it defies the legal framework and lawful parameters within which any further negotiations with the British on the issue of sovereignty must be taken. In such negotiations, the central premise is not to argue the legitimacy of Irish sovereignty. The submission has already established that, but the removal of British violation of it. Our rejection of the Good Friday Agreement and the dual referenda which endorsed it is not based on their outcome, but on the legality premises upon which they were held. We are not naive enough to believe that a legal foundation generated its own political dynamic. That needs to be constructed from the ground up, but it must be built with a clear narrative which reflects the core rights of that foundation. The vague aspirational language of peace must be replaced with a premise and defined language of sovereignty. And this holds all the more true for the current situation we find ourselves in. At a time of unprecedented opportunity for national change, the old political order in the Free State is desperately using this pandemic to rehabilitate itself with the electorate. And a shameful graph for power, the so-called Civil War parties, partitionists since their inception, are merging, so that the vested interest of bankers and private landlords will continue to be served. The fundamental shift in political thinking which is required to solve the housing crisis is not within their reasoning to deliver. They will continue to do the bidding of vulture funds, seek evictions and repossessions, while also distributing billions in rent supplements away from public housing projects and towards private landlords. Yet again, we see clearly, with an issue affecting the well-being of all the people of Ireland, the border is the main stumbling block to its resolution. It has reached a point of political, economical and medical farce that this grave injury to our national sovereignty is allowed to continue. And yet again, we see how Westminster cares little for the people as it deliberately chooses to dither so that an obscene herd immunity process could evolve from this crisis. Unionism needs a long and deep conversation with itself, as the old loyalties no longer bear the fruit for the select few within their community. Irish Republicans equally need such a conversation if our core position is to develop a platform which can deliver to a contemporary audience. This political merger in the 26 counties will require a new revisionism narrative to justify it. This will be aided by a willing press and media commentators whose idea of national thinking stops firmly at the border. Their framework document speaks of a shared island. Why can't they say the word Ireland? Whom have we to share it with who does not live in Ireland? This is a dangerous move which when mixed with the emotive rhetoric which will surely follow the passing of this crisis, will set a dangerous political narrative. This is precisely the tactic employed during the time of the Good Friday Agreement, when those who defended sovereignty were cast as enemies of the peace. Yet again, Republicans need to grasp the nettle of Republican unity. We cannot continue as we are when all around us are changing to adapt to the post-crisis situation to consolidate their political interests. Ireland is changing. How Republicans adapt to that change will determine our impact on it. Surely that is a greater honour to Volunteer Ronán MacLochlainn. Burbua.
We now go to Molly Kenning in Derry for Our On Navian.
Síne faoine fáil a tá faoi gailg éireann buin dar slú Harchin do rannig hun Vilhud feisir Shantir or shintir fasta Ni ag for Fintir anna Fin trial Anak da heim Savarnia will Legan gil hum wash no sil Legan Israel Filawan na bilir Sholif Canig or Navian.
That concludes our commemorative event for Volunteer Ronán MacLochlainn. I'd like to thank you all for your understanding, patience, and above all your participation and engagement to honour Ronán's memory. It is hoped that next year we can all gather at Ronán's graveside and render our thanks in person. In the meantime, let our activism be our daily honour and sacrifice to his memory. Bear well.
They read out all his details gone, but he'll rise again. And how he came to be there gone, but he'll rise again. He'll rise again. Gave his name and date of birth, how he came to leave this earth, rose his hands and stood up first. He's gone, but he'll rise again. Spoke about armed robbery gone, but he'll rise again. She cried from the mortuary, he's gone, but he'll rise again. He'll rise again. How a mother lost her son, cut down by cops with guns, grew up hard and grew up strong. He's gone, but he'll rise again. He'll rise again. Took his body from a mountainside, gone, but he'll rise again. Said they could not take him alive, he's gone, but he'll rise again. He'll rise again. His funeral march was long and slow, on a mountainside a seed rose. The piper played as the wind blows. He's gone, but he'll rise again.